All right. Welcome, everyone. Today, we're going to dive into some excerpts you've given me from Memories, Dreams, Reflections by Carl Jung. This isn't really like a typical biography, is it? We're not focusing on just the external milestones of Jung's life.
No, not at all. It's much more about what formed his thinking and shaped his ideas.
Yeah, so in this deep dive, we're really going to try to understand the genesis of some of his most important insights by looking closely at his own personal moments, the experiences that shaped him.
Especially the inner ones.
Right, the inner experiences and the sources you've provided here, Jung's own reflections, some of his personal letters, accounts of his interactions, all of that really gives us a good window into that inner world of his.
Exactly. And it's fascinating because Jung himself emphasized that inner life. The external events of his life, he felt, were often accidental. They didn't have the same substance as those inner experiences. And he even said that he often forgot those outer events, unless they happened to coincide with something happening inside him, some inner development. So it's like this early demonstration of how powerful the inner world is and how it can even shape what we remember.
Yeah, absolutely. And that really sets the stage for his whole approach to psychology. It's like he's saying, hey, the inner world is where it's at.
And this isn't to dismiss the outer world, but it's about recognizing the profound and lasting impact of our inner lives on our development.
Right. And speaking of inner life, his early religious experiences are really striking. Like this idea of an underground counterpart to Lord Jesus, a subterranean God that shouldn't even be named.
Hmm.
It created this real tension with the traditional Christian teachings he was exposed to.
Yeah, that's so interesting. It really raises questions about the nature of the God image for Jung. What aspect of God did he encounter that was so different from the accepted dogma?
Right. And he even saw religious ceremonies as kind of a solemn masquerade. It's like he was wrestling with the whole idea of organized religion from a young age.
He was engaging with the sacred, but not necessarily in the way that was sanctioned by the mainstream.
Absolutely. And this tendency to be drawn to things outside the norm shows up in his early encounters with art and beauty too, like the naked statues at the Basel Museum. He was captivated by them, totally in contrast to his aunt's disapproval. He even said it was the only beautiful thing I knew at that age.
I love that. And it's not just about beauty, is it? It's about these deeper archetypal patterns that resonate within us even before we can fully understand why.
Exactly. It's like those statues were tapping into something primal, something universal.
Right. And then, there's his childhood secret. This is amazing. The mannequin in the attic with the smooth colored stone and the secret language scrawls. It sounds like he created this whole inner world for himself.
Yeah, like a refuge from the complexities of family life. And it makes you think, doesn't it, about how we all create those inner spaces, those parts of ourselves that we keep hidden, even from those closest to us.
It's like a glimpse into what he would later call the individuation process, that journey of becoming a whole self. And in a way, it speaks to the power of having that internal world, that place where you can just be yourself.
Yeah, and his family dynamics definitely seem complex. He talks about his mother's invalidism and his father's moody irritability. It sounds like he was navigating some pretty intense emotions at a young age.
Yeah, and forced into a role, too, as the superior arbitrator.
Right, like he had to be the mediator between his parents.
And you can see how that might have shaped his ability to observe, to analyze those interpersonal dynamics, something that became so important in his work.
And it's amazing how even something as simple as the birth of his younger sister sparked his critical thinking. He immediately doubted the stork story, questioning how it could explain litters of animals, even a whole calf.
That's amazing. It's that inherent skepticism again, that willingness to question what he was told and search for logical consistency, a trait that would serve him well later on.
Yeah. And you can see this push and pull between feeling self-important and feeling inferior too. He talks about feeling dignified in his Sunday best and then being completely overwhelmed with a sense of smallness when he'd visit other people.
Ah, that's something so many people can relate to.
Totally. And it's interesting how he would go back to that secret treasure in the attic, that mannequin, that stone. It was like they helped him regain his composure.
Like a touchstone, a reminder of his own inner strength and value, regardless of what the outside world might throw at him.
Exactly. Then, moving into his school years, his struggles with mathematics really stand out, especially because he could actually do the calculations.
Right, so it wasn't a lack of ability, was it? There was something deeper going on there.
Yeah, he talks about having moral doubts about math, relying on memorization rather than genuine understanding. And he describes math class as terror and torture, like it was a visceral aversion.
Wow. And I think that's really significant, those moral doubts. What was it about that kind of abstract system that didn't sit right with him? It makes you wonder.
Totally. It's like maybe he sensed that kind of rigid logic wasn't a good fit for the way he understood the world. And then there's that incident where he felt like the sport of a blind and stupid fate after a school incident. He felt intense rage, shame, but then this realization he had wronged himself.
Oh, that's such a key moment. It's like he's taking ownership of his role in the situation, not just blaming external forces.
Exactly. It's a real step towards self-awareness, don't you think? And it's during these years that personality number 2 emerged as a source of peace and solitude. This wasn't a medical split, as he emphasized.
Right, not like a disorder or anything.
Yeah. It was more like this other side of himself, an inner figure that remained important throughout his life.
And that's really crucial for understanding Jung's view of the psyche's complexity.
Yeah.
It's not this monolithic thing. It has these different layers, different personalities even, that can interact with each other.
Exactly. And he even suggests that this personality, Noah, too, isn't that uncommon. It's just that most people don't consciously recognize it. Makes you think, what are those hidden aspects of ourselves that we haven't fully acknowledged?
I love that question. And his discomfort with organized religion continued to grow as well. He felt this disconnect between what was being preached and his own deepest, innermost certainty.
Right, and he wouldn't betray that inner certainty for anything. He
Yeah.
became so skeptical of those theological contradictions.
It's like he couldn't reconcile what he felt to be true with those intellectual explanations of faith.
Yeah, it's like he was saying, experience trumps dogma. And there's that amazing story about him recounting a stranger's life story at a wedding. He did it with absolutely no prior knowledge of the person. Just comes out of nowhere.
Wow, it's almost like an early example of what he would later call synchronicity, those meaningful coincidences that point to a connection beyond our conscious understanding.
Yeah, totally. And it makes you think, how much do we really know about the depths of our own minds? And his early philosophical explorations also played a big role. He wasn't satisfied with the usual explanations of God and evil, finding more resonance with Schopenhauer's view of the world's suffering.
It's interesting, isn't it, this early attraction to a philosopher who emphasizes the darker aspects of existence. Like he wasn't afraid to look at the shadow side of things.
No, not at all. And then, in his late teens, early medical studies, he describes this huge transformation. He went from being quite shy and timid to having a tremendous appetite for everything.
It's like a real blossoming.
Yeah, like he was finally integrating those inner explorations with his engagement in the outer world. And, when it came to choosing a profession, he went back and forth. Science, humanities, even archaeology.
Oh, wow, archaeology.
Yeah, Assyrian and Egyptian archaeology specifically. But ultimately, he settled on medicine. He felt it was a compromise, though, a way to earn a living.
So his heart wasn't truly in it from the start.
It seems that way. But medicine did lead him to psychiatry eventually, which, combined his scientific interests with his fascination with the human mind.
It's like that path was always there, waiting for him. And then there's that powerful dream he had, carrying the tiny light against a mighty wind.
Oh, yeah, and encountering that gigantic black figure, the specter of the Brocken.
Right, and his interpretation of that dream, the little light being his consciousness, that understanding, that awareness being his sole treasure.
Such a potent metaphor, like our consciousness is this fragile flame constantly battling against those immense forces of the unconscious.
It's a reminder of how precious that inner light is and how important it is to cultivate it. And it's interesting how he noticed the subtle influences of the unconscious on children, like how they react to things that are unspoken, things in the environment, even his father's religious doubts, which weren't even openly acknowledged for a long time.
Right, it's like children are these barometers of the unconscious atmosphere. They kick up on those unspoken tensions and dynamics. It makes you wonder what we might learn if we paid more attention to those subtle cues.
Absolutely. And it's no wonder that his own attempts to discuss his father's faith led to frustration. He gave those theological answers that didn't satisfy him at all. It just solidified his belief in the direct personal experience of God.
It's that experiential approach again, not just intellectualizing faith, but feeling it, living it.
Exactly. And then after his father's death, he had those incredibly vivid dreams of his return, which got him really thinking about life after death.
Yeah, like those dreams cracked open a whole new realm of inquiry for him. The unconscious, death, the possibility of an afterlife. It's like those big existential questions really took hold.
It's fascinating how certain events can trigger those deep explorations within us. And around this time, his interest in spiritualism also surfaced, something that his friends ridiculed.
Right. But he couldn't understand their certainty that things like ghosts were impossible. He was so open to exploring those phenomena that mainstream science often dismissed.
I mean, it's that scientific mind of his. It wants evidence, but it's not afraid to consider possibilities beyond the accepted norm.
Yeah, he wasn't limited by those preconceived notions of what's possible and what's not.
Exactly. And that openness is so important when we're dealing with the mysteries of the psyche.
And as a junior assistant in anatomy, he developed a real aversion to vivisection. He felt this deep kinship with animals and unconscious identity.
It wasn't just an intellectual stance against cruelty, it was something more profound, wasn't it?
Yeah, like he felt a real connection to all living beings, a sense of shared life that went beyond just the physical.
That's beautiful. And it aligns with his later ideas about the collective unconscious, the idea that we're all connected on a deeper level. And, he also describes some pretty strange poltergeist-like phenomena in his own household. Exploding tables, snapping knife blades. It's almost like the unseen world was trying to get his attention.
And his mother's reactions were pretty cryptic, like she knew something more was going on.
It's as if she had an intuitive understanding of these forces that were beyond the rational.
Exactly. And it's interesting because initially, Jung wasn't that interested in psychiatry. His father had had some negative experiences in asylums, which influenced him.
Yeah, but then came his work with the association test,
Mm.
and that breakthrough case with the woman who had unconsciously killed her child.
That case really changed his perspective. And he kept it quiet from his colleagues because of the potential legal ramifications.
It's a reminder of how groundbreaking his work was, and how the prevailing medical opinions of the time were often resistant to these new ideas.
Yeah, it's like he was venturing into uncharted territory. And he mentioned some other memorable cases too, like that unnamed doctor who confessed to murder after 20 years. And the patient, Babette, who was profoundly impaired. He realized that even in those seemingly senseless behaviors, there could be deeper meaning.
And Freud's reaction to Babette, it's so telling, isn't it? He focused on her appearance while Jung was interested in her inner world.
Right. It's like they were looking at the same patient, but seeing completely different things. And that difference, foreshadows the eventual split between them.
Yeah, those contrasting approaches. Freud with his focus on the surface, on sexuality, and Jung with his interest in the symbolic and those deeper archetypal patterns.
Exactly. And that brings us to their relationship, doesn't it? Jung was initially influenced by Freud's The Interpretation of Dreams. It gave him a framework for understanding the unconscious.
It was a crucial starting point for him.
But they started to diverge. Jung felt Freud was too one-sided, too fixated on sexuality. He even describes this fear of a black tide of mud in relation to that.
It's like he felt that reducing everything to sexuality was missing the bigger picture.
Absolutely. And he came to understand Adler's power hypothesis too. He reframed the conflict as Freud versus Nietzsche, seeing it as a clash between Eros and the will to power.
Oh, wow. Eros versus powers. That's a really powerful way to look at it, like those fundamental forces at play in human nature.
And ultimately, he felt that Freud wanted to make Eros into a dogma, like a new religion.
It's like that rigid adherence to theory was stifling the exploration of the unconscious for Jung. He needed more freedom.
Exactly. And that split was necessary for him to really develop his own ideas, like his dreams of the night from the 12th century, connected to alchemy and the Grail stories. It became his own world.
It's like those dreams were pointing him towards something deeper, beyond the personal, towards those historical, mythological layers of the psyche.
And then in 1913, he had these overpowering visions, a monstrous flood, the sea turning to blood. It happened before the outbreak of World War I.
Those visions are so intense. It's like a premonition of the collective trauma that was about to unfold.
Yeah, like a window into the collective unconscious, showing how those deep archetypal patterns can even be connected to global events.
So powerful. And then he had those dreams involving Siegfried's death, Elijah, Salome, the Black Snake. It's a whole hero myth unfolding.
Yeah, and he interpreted them as personifications of logos and arrows. It's like those archetypal energies were playing out within him.
Right, and the snake being a counterpart to the hero. That duality, it's a constant theme in his work. And then there's Philemon, the spirit teacher.
Yeah, Philemon. It's amazing how he realized this figure wasn't just external, it was an aspect of himself, a part of his own unconscious.
That's so important. Like, the unconscious isn't the separate entity. It's part of who we are. And Philemon is like an embodiment of that wise old man archetype, the guide, the mentor.
Exactly. And then he develops the concepts of the anima and the animus, those inner feminine and masculine figures. He talks about his own evolving relationship with his anima, learning to understand those unconscious messages through dreams.
Those concepts are so central to his work. And it's fascinating how he personally grappled with integrating those inner opposites.
Right. It's not just theory for him. It's lived experience.
And then, to record all of this, he created those amazing books, the Black Book and later the Red Book, filled with his fantasies, those mandala drawings.
And he describes a shift, doesn't he, from just appreciating those images aesthetically to wanting to really understand them.
Yeah, like he wanted to decode the messages, unravel the mysteries of his own unconscious.
And those mandalas became really important symbols for him, symbols of psychic integration, of wholeness.
It's like they represent that process of bringing order to the chaos of the unconscious. And all of this deep inner work, it led to a profound sense of loneliness for him. He felt that no one else could understand what he was going through.
Yeah, that feeling of isolation is something a lot of people experience when they embark on those deep inner journeys.
Yeah.
It's like you're in this world that no one else can see.
It can be really challenging, for sure, but also incredibly rewarding. And then comes the mandala as a cryptogram of the self, a symbol of psychic wholeness.
And he talks about that dream in Liverpool, the illuminated island, the magnolia tree. It was so profound for him, and yet his companions didn't even notice anything special.
Right, like they were blind to the symbolic meaning that was so clear to him.
It's a good reminder that those inner experiences are ultimately subjective. And then there's his engagement with alchemy. He realized those alchemists were describing psychological processes, even if they didn't know it themselves.
It's like he found this historical precedent for his own exploration of the unconscious. It gave his ideas more substance.
Exactly. And it connected him to a whole lineage of seekers, going back to Gnosticism. And after this period of intense engagement with his unconscious, from 1913 to 1917, he needed to take a step back, to look at things more objectively.
And that's when he wrote The Relations Between the Ego and the Unconscious.
Right.
Right.
It's like he was trying to make sense of all that inner material, to give it form and structure.
It's such a key text for understanding his ideas. And his exploration of Eastern philosophies, especially Taoism, also played a big role. Like his collaboration with Richard Wilhelm on The Secret of the Golden Flower.
Right, that concept of the self as the central point. It resonated so deeply with him. And it's interesting how he continued to wrestle with Christianity, too.
Yeah.
Offering psychological interpretations of the Trinity, the Mass, even Christ himself as an archetype.
It's like he was trying to bridge the gap between religion and psychology, to find the psychological meaning behind those traditional symbols.
Yeah. And then later in life, Bowlingham became so important for him. It was the place where he felt most himself, connected to land, to his ancestry.
It was his sanctuary.
Totally. And he describes these amazing experiences there, like hearing polyphonic music coming from a boiling kettle. It's like the boundaries between the inner and outer world were blurring.
It's beautiful, isn't it? Like those everyday objects could become vessels for these profound experiences. And, he symbolically buried a dead soldier on his property. And he chiseled the names of his ancestors into stone tablets, painted his family's coat of arms in the tower.
Yeah, it's like he was honoring the past, recognizing that connection to his lineage.
And he was very aware of the dangers of losing that connection in modern society.
Yeah.
That uncritical embrace of progress without remembering where we came from.
Yeah. And his travels were so important, too. In North Africa, he felt like Africa was speaking to him. He had a dream of wrestling with an Arab prince, symbolizing a conflict with the unconscious.
It's like those encounters with different cultures were triggering these inner confrontations, bringing those unconscious patterns to the surface.
Exactly. In his time with the Pueblo Indians in New Mexico, their worldview centered on the mountain and the sun. It really resonated with him.
It's like he saw a different way of being in the world, a way of connecting to nature and the cosmos that was so different from the European mindset.
And then his travels in East Africa, the landscapes, the wildlife, the rituals and beliefs. He even intervened in a Rigoma ceremony. It's like he was immersing himself in those different ways of life.
And he reflected on Indian spirituality too, seeing both its beauty and its potential limitations. He compared Christ and Buddha as different embodiments of the self.
It's fascinating how he was always comparing those different systems of thought, those different paths, to understanding the human condition, and that dream of the Castle of the Grail in Bruges. and that learned professor who was completely oblivious to the legend's meaning.
Yeah, it's like that intellectual understanding without the inner experience. It's missing the heart of it.
Exactly. And that shared vision of the mosaic of Peter sinking in Ravenna, it's almost like a glimpse into the paranormal.
A synchronistic event. It's like those deeper connections were revealing themselves in strange and unexpected ways.
And his experience in Rome and Pompeii, feeling the weight of classical antiquity, he felt so certain approaching the temple that he would understand his place in history.
It's like he was tapping into that sense of continuity,
Wow.
of belonging to something larger than himself. And he even describes those experiences of absolute objectivity in his visions. It's like he was transcending time itself.
Yeah, and then there's that powerful message about affirming things as they are, accepting mistakes as part of the individuation process.
It's so important, isn't it? That willingness to embrace the imperfections, to see the value in those missteps.
Totally. And the sure road, as he puts it, is actually a dangerous path
Mm,
because it keeps us stuck in the known and the comfortable.
right. And then there's that incident in Erlenbach, the memory coinciding with his grandson nearly drowning. It suggests that maybe there's this unconscious awareness that operates beyond space and time.
Yeah, like that synchronicity again. And he talks about other people's dreams of the afterlife, emphasizing the importance of our earthly experiences.
It's almost like those dreams are telling us, this life matters. This is where we learn and grow.
And he introduces this concept of mythologizing. It's that necessary stage between the unconscious and conscious. Because the unconscious knows more, he says, but in a different way.
Yeah, it's like those myths, those stories help us bridge that gap to make sense of those deep, often ineffable truths of the unconscious.
And he grapples with the paradox of death, too. It's a catastrophe from the ego's perspective, but maybe something else entirely for the psyche. And yet he acknowledges its cruelty.
Right, like he's holding those two perspectives at once, the pain of loss and the possibility of something more.
And he touches on reincarnation, comparing the Eastern and Western views, and noting how Buddha remains silent on the personal nature of karma.
I think that silence is so significant. It's like Buddha's saying, focus on the present moment, on the suffering that is right here, right now, not on speculating about past lives.
Yeah. And he talks about the demonization of man in the modern age, that loss of transcendence, and the importance of becoming conscious of those unconscious contents.
It's like we've lost touch with the sacred, and that imbalance can lead to all sorts of problems.
Absolutely. And he challenges those rigid moral codes too, suggesting that ethical decision-making is often a subjective, creative act. Sometimes we have to go beyond those conventional notions of good and evil.
Like that Indian philosophy, neti neti, not this, not that. It's about finding that middle way. And he even offers this fascinating interpretation of UFO rumors, seeing them as circular symbols of unity, compensating for the split in the God image.
Right, like those UFOs are tapping into this unconscious longing for wholeness, for a resolution to those inner conflicts.
Yeah.
And he discusses the limitations of the Christian God image, too. It's not that he's rejecting Christianity, but he feels it needs to evolve to encompass the fullness of human experience.
It's like we need a more nuanced understanding of the divine, one that doesn't shy away from the darkness, from the shadow side of things.
Exactly. And his own explanatory myth is so compelling. The idea that man plays a role in creation by developing consciousness, like we're confirming the creator.
Wow. It's like we're partners in this cosmic dance. Our awareness, our self-reflection, it's actually contributing to the unfolding of reality.
And he talks about dira necessitas, that inner compulsion that can drive us towards things we don't even understand.
Like those forces that seem to override our conscious will, sometimes leading us to do things that seem crazy, even destructive.
Yeah. And he acknowledges the isolation that can come from choosing to face those inner conflicts head on, taking responsibility for our own shadows.
It can be a lonely path, but it's also a path of profound growth and authenticity.
And he even describes this experience of obeying an inner law that left him no choice. Like he was being guided by something beyond his ego.
That's so powerful. It's like surrendering to that deeper wisdom that resides within us. And his relationships, they fluctuated depending on how those people connected to his inner world.
It's like he was drawn to those who could understand and appreciate that deeper part of him. And despite all the challenges, the disappointments, he expresses this real satisfaction with his life, recognizing that everything happened because I am as I am.
Yeah, it's a beautiful statement of self-acceptance.
And then there's that eerie recurrence of the number 61 during his trip to Greece, the number that represented his projected age of death.
It's like those synchronicities were always popping up, reminding him of the interconnectedness of things.
And his trip to America, even though he was physically uncomfortable, he enjoyed it. He made these observations about American culture, technology.
It's like he was always curious, always learning from those different perspectives.
In his encounter with the Etchang and his collaboration with Richard Wilhelm, they found this shared understanding of those meaningful connections, a way of clarifying those really difficult problems.
The I Ching is such a powerful tool for exploring those synchronicities, those patterns that connect seemingly unrelated events. And finally, there are the 7 sermons to the dead, this outpouring from his unconscious.
Yeah, those sermons are like a direct transmission from that deep, mysterious realm of the pleroma, the realm of pure potentiality. It's heavy stuff.
Definitely. And so, as we wrap up this deep dive into Jung's reflections, what stands out to you the most?
I mean, it's clear that this wasn't just an intellectual journey for him. It was deeply personal, a lifelong process of self-discovery. And he developed some groundbreaking psychological concepts along the way.
Concepts that are still so relevant today.
And those anecdotes, those stories he tells, they really stay with you. The childhood mannequin, those powerful dreams, his encounters with different cultures, his struggle with those established beliefs. It all paints such a vivid picture of a mind that's constantly searching, constantly evolving.
And it's his willingness to explore, to really delve into his own depths that's so inspiring.
Right? It's like he's saying, look, if I can do this, you can too. It's worth the effort.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so our final thought for you, listener, is this. Maybe those most significant events in our lives, the ones that really shape who we become, aren't always the big public things. Maybe they're the events that trigger those profound inner transformations. What are those events for you? What has shaped your inner world? Something to think about.
It's a question worth pondering, for sure.
All right. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Carl Jung's memories, dreams, reflections.
It's been a pleasure.
And until next time, keep exploring.